Welcome to the Hot Lava Podcast. Kevin Acee, Padres beat writer for the Union-Tribune. Ryan Finley with me, sports editor of the Union-Tribune. If you're watching, you can see that because our pictures and our names are up there. I am in Arizona, Peoria, at the Union-Tribune house. I think I'm by myself now, but photographer Casey Alfred is here. He's replaced Meg McLaughlin, who left last night. Casey got here today. And Bryce Miller is on his way. He's replacing Jeff Sanders, who has been here and been very helpful. So here I am in the kitchen of the Peoria Union-Tribune house in the track, about 3 minutes away from the Peoria Sports Complex. And there, you're up to date with me. Where would you like to start, Ryan?
Kevin, let's just start with that. You've been out at Peoria for a little bit more than a week now. I know there's a lot to get to between signings and sort of the tenor of their offseason changing, but sort of what are you feeling here through a week? What's really jumped out at you in terms of how this squad looks?
You know, I can't get past this right now. This is where I'll start. Well, I can get past it. I will, I promise. But this is where I'll start. Yesterday, someone asked me, someone who just arrived at camp asked about the vibe. And I was like, interesting. You know what? I haven't thought about the vibe. Thought about the vibe last year, right? Thought about the because it was Mike Schilt's first year, right? And they were coming off the disappointment. Thought about the vibe in 23 because it was the World Baseball Classic. And remember, they were the super team, man, headed to the World Series. Thought about the vibe in 22, Bob Melvin's first year. Coming off the disappointment of 21. I said, there's no vibe this year. And I have no idea what to read into that other than, is it a good thing? Like Mike Schilt's culture has been established, right? There aren't a whole bunch of new guys. And it's just, they hit the ground running in camp. Maybe that's what it is. But that's where I'm at right now. Obviously, there are some new guys with the signings. We can get into those. Today, as we tape this, it was the third day of full squad workouts. I have some impressions there. I don't know what you've been thinking along with us, Ryan, as you've been there editing and reading all the copy.
Well, let's talk about just kind of your impressions off these workouts. Who stepped up? Any names out there that look bigger, faster, stronger?
Best shape of their life?
Best shape of their life. That's the old sports writer cliche. It's a little bit of an inside joke here. You never write in camp, whether that's football or baseball, that a guy's in the best shape of his life, because that's what everybody tells you when they show up, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. When was it okay? Was it like the 60s, 70s, 80s? When did all of us sports writers realize, wait a minute, every year, every guy's in the best shape of his life. And now we refuse to ever talk about that. Though you can't get around it, right? Like Manny looks leaner, right? Like he's not cut like Tatis and Bogarts, right? They look Tatis looks about the same. He got to rest and kind of bulk up a little bit and, be his usual 25-year-old chiseled self. Xander Bogaerts lost 10 pounds and looks more cut, getting ready to play shortstop at 32 years old. Here's what stands out for me. One thing. Well, Luis Arraez is healthy. And that's big. All the story on him. Maybe we post it tomorrow morning. Maybe we post it tonight. I'm almost done with it. You'll have it later, Ryan. But I will be writing in a few days about Fernando Tatis Jr. And the thing that has struck me about him, because look, I'm not going to get into like, what does he look like hitting, in batting practice, but his confidence is back. Now, it's not like he wasn't confident the last couple of years, but let's think about it. He wasn't Fernando Tatis Jr., and now he feels like he can be. And I just think that has the potential to be important, because my experience in covering this guy is that when he feels like Fernando Tatis Jr., and he feels like he really is capable of being one of the best players in the league, which he has said this year that he is, which he did not say last year, I think that's significant. I think that's when it lines up well for Tatis to have a big year.
He was that guy in the playoffs last year. And I'm not sure that I had seen him like that post motorcycle accident, right? He hit a ball at Petco into the sun, just destroyed it, and was that guy until the last two games in the National League Division Series. he was that guy who could change a game every time he came up. And I'm not sure that he had been that way for 2 years.
And he sort of had to force himself to step up a little bit because he says he was still in a lot of pain at the end of the year. So
with his leg. Yeah, sure.
With the leg. And so, I'm glad you're there to, remind me that not everybody lives inside of my head on these podcasts, and maybe kind of, hey, why are you talking about Tatis being healthy? Oh yeah, because he had a stress reaction in his right femur, and he was hurt, and he came back in September, and then he has always, or when given the opportunity, he missed the 2022 playoffs. He has been a big time performer on the big stage, and especially if that stage happens to be at Dodger Stadium. And he was, but he was still not, he says maybe around 60% the leg. So
yeah, he could, if he's 100%, and again, caveat, everybody says they're 100% in spring training because for the most part you are, right? You break down over the course of a season. But if he can stay at 100%, that's a huge boost. You had a story in Sunday's paper about Xander Bogaerts and his move back to shortstop. I thought that he was very candid with you about his own level of disappointment in how he's played, in what he was supposed to bring to this franchise when he got here, et cetera. What was that conversation like?
Well, first I want to say that, on a professional level, Xander Bogaerts is one of those guys, and on a human level, one of those guys I just appreciate just for being who he is and being candid, right? He's in a tough spot. Now, raise your hand if you would trade spots with him. To be under a lot of pressure, but making $25 million a year for 11 years. So I'm not asking you to get out the violins for him, but, he's in a tough spot. There's a lot expected of him. He's been injured. He's been, it's been disappointing. And, that's what he said. He also acknowledged, and here's the thing, I knew that he would. You go into an interview, you've got some topics you want to talk about, and you have a level of optimism or pessimism, depending on, how well you know the guy, whether he's going to come through. Zero question in my mind that Xander Bogaerts was well aware that he is 32 years old, not getting any younger, making a lot of money, will be making a lot of money when he's 37, 38, 39, and 40, just like Manny Machado will. And why is that significant? Because 37, 38, 39, 40 in baseball is 77, 78, 79, and 80 in real life, okay? So he knows how important now is, and they've built the roster with the idea that Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts are in their prime. Yu Darvish is still here. It was supposed to be Joe Musgrove too. They have Jackson Merrill and Fernando Tatis Jr., who are just in the beginning. Jackson Merrill probably has not even reached his prime, and Tatis ostensibly is in the beginning of his prime. So now is the time, and Xander Bogaerts knows that he's a big part of that.
Yeah, it's you talk about. One of the most interesting things he said is he acknowledged that he's making a little less, right, that right now is part of his deal because of the terms that he got. Let me see if I can rephrase that in a more intelligent way, Kevin. He knows that they're not paying him $25 million to be that guy when he's 41. They're paying him that money so he can be a stud now, right? And the reward is when you're 41, you're still making $25 million a year.
Right.
He took a little less average annual value to make their books work.
Yes, right. And he got people talk about this, like it became fairly well known, I guess, that, like the Padres offered 100 million more or 80 million more, whatever it was, than the Red Sox. Well, yeah, for more years.
Right.
So like he got more money, and that's where baseball has gone now, is the total value. Yeah. Who did they just sign? Pitcher, blah, blah. Sorry.
Nick Pivetta?
Yeah.
Nick Pivetta. Yeah.
Sorry. I knew it was, and I was like, I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm going to let my boss say it. But Pivetta turned down $21 million, right? As getting the qualifying offer from the Red Sox. He got $55 million guaranteed from the Padres. Now, that's over 4 years, so you want to average that out? Oh my gosh, look at all the money he left on the table. Or he took $21 million guaranteed, got hurt, and left $34 million on the table. right? Like Nick Pivetta is $34 million richer now than he would have been had he taken the now. So the total value, and yes, the way that agents, executives sometimes talk about it is like they're paying Xander 1.5x or even say 2x now, because what they're going to be, they're just wasting that money when he's 40 is the assumption, like. And it's not just Xander Bogaerts or the $40 million that Manny makes on the last 5 or 6 years of his deal, or it's Trey Turner, Aaron Judge, Bryce Harper, Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani. I'm sorry. Shohei Ohtani pitching and hitting for 10 years. You don't really think he's going to be worth that then, do you? So And gosh, they're going to be paying that till he's 60. Of course, he won't be playing, but that's the way of baseball, at least right now, the Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado contract.
Right. And that's where I'd like to take this next. The Padres have been, I think, incredibly creative with how they've structured the deals of their new players coming in. Last time we talked, Kevin, we were sitting around waiting for them to do something, anything, right? If you went on the Twitterverse, Padres Twitter land, you would see people freaking out because Ben Gamble could have really helped this team, and Ben Gamble signed somewhere else, right? Since then, they've signed starting pitchers at club-friendly deals, at least for this season, right? They've got Nick Pivetta. Nick Pivetta makes very little this year, with a lot more coming off the books next year when the Padres will have more wiggle room. You look at the player who they signed from Korea. Yeah. He's making very little this year, right? As part of the deal. They went and they signed Yuli Gurriel, right? I don't know what he has left in the tank, but they've gotten him at a price that is
a minor league deal that'll pay him $1.25 million if he makes the team.
If he makes the team, not big money. What has AJ Preller been able to do here? And is this sort of a new era for him? I mean, this kind of creativity, we've seen flashes of this in the past, but to me, this is kind of next level stuff that he's doing.
Well, I'm fascinated. First off, yes, they do deserve the credit. Before I get into the credit that Josh Stein deserve, Josh Stein, the assistant general manager, I'll say that the landscape is there for them too. Like you talk to agents around, they can't get their guys guaranteed deals. Your top end guys, heck yeah, are getting eventually, right? Are getting the big money. But other guys, teams aren't even giving out guaranteed money. Ben Gamble didn't get guaranteed money even. Right. And it's these $1 million contracts. So the Padres are fortunate. The landscape is where it's at. You're also getting Jason Hayward at 35 years old, who may or may not still be able to hit. You're getting Connor Joe, who is a nice utility piece, but what are you going to be asking him to do? Right. That's who you're getting. You're getting Elias Diaz for $1.5 million plus $2 million and a buyout of an option. And since it's $7 million next year, it's definitely going to be the buyout, unless he, pulls off a Gary Sanchez, I guess, this year. It's 18 homers for the Padres. So the landscape is right for him. But the way that, because of the cash crunch, and I'm fascinated by what AJ's done, right? There was the trades that he was allowed to do to add the salary in 2021, 2022 also, and then 2022 midseason to early 2023 was given this, the checkbook was opened. He was almost practically forced to sign a couple guys. And then last year had to cut. Found, some real deals in Jurickson Profar, David Peralta, Donovan Solano. And then at the trade deadline, he was able to give enough prospects to get Luis Arraez in May for like $600,000 for the year. Right. Spent a little bit for Dylan Cease, but then at the trade deadline, got all these guys. Obviously it's August, end of July. There's not much left on their deals. Just was able to do it really economically. This year, when all the guys that were on his team, there's 11 guys that accounted for like $45 million in additional salary because their salaries went up. Now he's had to do it yet another way. So as much as I hate the cliche that he always spews, which is every offseason's different, It is.
Every offseason's different. Yeah. To me, and again, I was mostly speaking to the starting pitching, right? We had reported, right, that we sort of thought that if they were going to add salary, they'd have to subtract salary to do it. They have found a way somehow to add a solid number 4, maybe even number 3 starting pitcher in Nick Pivetta at a price that's not going to kill him this year. If the player from the KBO comes over and right, if he comes out and even if he's a long man, I mean, if he just makes your club at what they're paying him, that's good value. You know?
Right. And I honestly think he's probably, if he doesn't make the team, he's probably in AAA to start.
Right.
And to me, that can't be overstated because you're looking at this roster 2 weeks ago going, first off, you're counting on Matt Waldron and Randy Vasquez to be every bit as good as they were last year. Yu Darvish to be healthier. Dylan Cease and Michael King to be everything they were. Mm-hmm. And you have nothing else.
Right.
And now they've got 4 or 5 guys that could be decent depth at AAA. And you absolutely need that. It's remarkable how lucky they were with their starting pitching last year, even with Joe Musgrove making 20 starts and Yu Darvish making 24 or something like that. Maybe it was 19 and 20 they made. Regardless, they missed a significant portion of the season, and they were so lucky to get through like they did because of what Vasquez and Waldron were able to do. That's not going to happen again. I think it's huge. Now, you can make fun of Kyle Hart signing or whatever, like, oh, well, no, that was a huge signing for what he might have to do for you. Even if it's 5 starts, those are the kind of 5 starts, if you give the team a chance to win, that can be a difference.
And this is not a team that has a ton of AAA pitching.
Right.
I mean, that's part of it too, right? I mean, it's Kyle Hart maybe means that you're not pushing Johnny Brito. He means that you keep Adrian Morahone in the bullpen where he thrived last year, right? Adding these kinds of guys means that you're not putting other players, for lack of a better word, out of position, right?
You're not. That's what one of the things that you really do want on a good team is that you don't have to have people do what they're not good at. Because the reality is, like, a lot of times, a lot of players are only as good as who they're surrounded by and what they're asked to do or not do. That goes for hitters and pitchers.
Kyle Higashioka put together the 3rd or 4th best offensive season by a catcher in the history of the San Diego Padres last year by being put in situations to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
I
mean, to me, one of the things that Mike Shildt has done a very good job at, I think, is putting guys in the situation to succeed. You look at an Adrian Morahone, you look at his age, you look at, frankly, his velocity, the fact that he's left-handed. It would be really tempting to sit there and say, man, we think that this guy can be our 4th or 5th starter. Man, we're going to throw him out there. But that's not a role that he's thrived at all in his professional career. This is not a guy, right? For all the talk about him being a future ace, he hasn't proven that. He's proven to be a really good left-handed reliever. And
it's a really good point. I wasn't sure where you're going with at the start, and I really like the point that you're making because it's so obvious, really, that Adrian Morahone should be a reliever at this point. I'm not talking about the rest of his career. For as long as he's been around, you think he's 40. Kid's like 25. I mean, but there are so many warning signs that he should not be a starter.
Right.
But what if you had to make him one?
Yeah.
Like, what if you're even just giving him more innings and stretching him out in spring and he gets hurt again or something? Mm-hmm. You're building his confidence by putting him in the right situations. And he's really talented. So get the most out of that talent. It's a really good example.
Yep. Put a guy in a position to be successful.
And Shildt, for all the credit that AJ Preller deserves, a little bit of luck for Solano, for Peralta, for the bullpen moves. Mm-hmm. You are right. Mike Shildt pulled the levers, and he pulled them pretty darn well.
Yeah. No, agreed. And this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. And again, this is what good teams do, right? You know, you and I it's so funny. I'm reminded, Kevin, a year ago, you and I were talking when you got to Peoria, and we went, well, they have no outfielders and they have no starting pitchers, but outside of that, they'll be just fine, right? And they figured it out. I really think that those starting pitching moves the last couple of weeks have solved or at least patched what we all thought was going to be a really big problem with this team. Right?
Well, that it was going to be a big problem, or what you knew was they were going to do something about it. Now, how well were they going to be able to do something about it, right? Was Kyle Hart going to be the top, or, Kyle Hart's just the guy they got. Cool. You can be happy about that because you got Nick Pivetta. Now, Nick Pavetta's never had lower than a 4 ERA. Nick Pivetta gives up a lot of fly balls and pitched in Fenway Park, right? Mm-hmm. So now, it's you can have optimism. He's working with Ruben Niebla. No offense against anybody he's worked with, but hey, maybe there's some things there. He's working in a little more fly ball friendly park. If your number 4 starter has a 3.9 ERA, you might have had a good season.
Yep. Kevin, I'll take the under on his ERA. Let's say by June 1st, I'm saying prime Marine layer season. If he's pitching 640 games at Petco Park, fly ball pitcher there. I know that the park plays a lot more fair than it used to, but I'll take my chances with a fly ball pitcher at Petco Park, especially in the spring.
There still is that element. The Padres did a really good job under Victor Rodriguez, under Mike Schilt, and just, overcoming Petco to a certain extent last year. Right. It still is a difficult park. There are still a number of times after games you'll talk to players and they'll be like, how did that not go out?
Right. Thought I had it. I will argue that the 2023 season essentially ended when Juan Soto hit what would have been a grand slam to the warning track against the Diamondbacks. And after the game, he thought I had it. His reaction was, I thought he had it. And if they win that game, maybe everything changes. But
if nothing else, a metaphor for that season of so close.
Yep. Thought he had it. Yep. We thought they had it too. Let's talk about left field real quick here. One of the more interesting notes that I've read from you here in the last week or so.
Oh, I know where you're going.
I know you know exactly
where I'm going. A poster of him somewhere. The only poster in existence.
You wrote something, and Mike Schilt said it, that it's not necessarily going to be a platoon between Connor Joe and Jason Hayward. That Jason Hayward is going to be given the chance to at least get the lion's share of the at-bats, right, as a left-handed hitter facing right-handed pitching. And that Connor Joe could bounce around. He could play some first base. He could DH a little. It's not necessarily going to be either one or the other every day in left field. And you brought up a name that we've tried to talk about on this podcast before, and we always seem to run out of time. And that's Eggy Rosario, an infielder by trade, a guy who was slow last year to come back because he had broken his ankle the previous season, correct? Was it in the Winter League? I find him to be, as you know, a compelling prospect. Big kid, crushes left-handed pitching, could play the short side of the platoon. In small sample sizes has proven that he can do okay. How real is his chance of playing this year in left field?
I think it's pretty good, and it's largely dependent on his bat. Now, I say that, and I want to make sure I point out, guy's a sneaky athlete because he is a big dude, but he can play second, he can play third. He was a shortstop. I mean, he looks just as good out there as Jason Hayward. Now, Jason Hayward's 35, and I thought Jason Hayward's looked good out there. Yeah. But it's largely dependent on his bat. And Eggy crushes lefties. Check me on this. I think he has 24 career hits, right? And is very limited, right? He's a career 240 hitter with an 800 OPS because 13 of his hits are extra base hits. Doubles are in particular. And all of those 13, by the way, are against lefties. So you want to talk about a platoon? That could be your guy.
Right. You want to talk about putting yourself in a position to succeed? If all Eggy Rosario does is face left-handed pitching all year, maybe he's a league average, if not better. I mean, maybe the combination of Hayward and Rosario gets you somewhere. Do you remember, Kevin, I'm old enough to remember the Seth Smith, Chris DeNorfia platoon in right field, where neither one of those guys were what we would call all-stars or anything approaching that. But together, their production was really good, right? That they just kind of patched it together one year, and DeNorfia hit well against lefties. Seth Smith crushed right-handed pitching, and it was together a pretty good, really inexpensive solution to a problem.
I'm going to, I'm once again going to, commend you on your Padres history knowledge. Yes, I do remember that. I do. And I loved me some Chris Denorfia. I wish Chris Denorfia had a chance to be a glue guy, like a Tyler Wade on a good Padres team. And yes, they would be trying to do that this year, but have it be a contending team.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's right. The winning.
And that's where it's, you know what? Like, everyone wants that 2023 team, which, by the way, had holes. But, like, how'd that work out, right? Yeah. Take a look at what the Dodgers have done. Now, that's a little silly because their top three might be as good as the top three in any top three in history, right? So, like, the fact that they then run 17 guys out in center field or whatever, it's not a good comparison. My point is, you can have holes if your big time players are coming through.
Yep.
And then you can call them holes, but they do just enough and they get the timely hit. And Jason Hayward has 4 big games, right? And Eggy Rosario has a really crucial stretch. And that's good enough because Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Luis Arraez, Fernando Tatis Jr. are doing what they're being paid to do.
Yep, absolutely. Jason Hayward, it wasn't that long ago. It's 2023. He was a damn good player for the LA Dodgers.
Did you notice a disruption in the forest for a second? The internet kind of got a little shaky, but Bryce Miller showed up at the UT Peoria house. So if you notice kind of like a disruption, that was it.
If all of a sudden you're just distracted, it's because of Bryce. Last thing before we go, tell me about Jason Hayward. This is a player who I don't know a whole lot about outside of he's been in the big leagues for 15 years, and he gave a really good speech during a rain delay in the 2016 World Series. That's all I know about the guy. What's he like to be around?
Well, that's one of the reasons that they brought him in. I mean, he is 35 years old. He has a penchant for going really cold, especially lately. Obviously, the Padres think they see some things that they can work with. They want him to be a leader. They want him to be adequate. That's it in left field. And they want him to hit against righties and, again, be better than adequate there. They're not going to get whatever it was, 4-8 WAR out of whoever they put there, that combination. And if they do, well then, hey, I'll own that. That'll be fun to watch. A platoon that does that. Man, AJ Preller really deserved credit for that. But seems to be legit, like a guy who knows his place in this league, 16 years in, he seems to be legit.
Nice. I'm really fascinated by players like him at this stage in his career. He could probably have done what Tommy Pham just decided to do, right? Go play left field for the Pirates every day, or go maybe get more playing time on a team with lower expectations.
And I don't know that for sure for him. He took $1 million with only $250,000 in possible incentives. And that tells me that there wasn't a lot of market out there for him. But I do think that you are correct that Jason Hayward was interested at this point in playing only for a winner.
Yep.
And by the way, that's all he's basically done in his career almost.
I was going to say Braves, Cardinals, Cubs, Dodgers, Astros.
10 postseasons.
Yep. What do all 5 of those teams have in common? Winners. Yuli Gurriel, he talked this morning. Last thing before we go, what's he like? I know that he addressed the scandal from their World Series and the gesture he made toward you, Darvish, at the time.
Well, not the scandal from their World Series, Ryan.
A scandal, one of many from that World Series. What was that like this morning?
It was real casual. Yesterday, talked to you, Darvish, who, not surprisingly, was extremely gracious. He was gracious at the time, and yesterday he was gracious as well. He talked to Yuli Gurriel, and that's what Gurriel talked about. Said he was he had a lot of gratitude for that. I think that I do think it because of you, Darvish. That and also, because of Yuli Gurriel and his place in this game, which is, I think, greater than people know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this guy is a stud, or was a stud. Is he still? He'll be 41 in June. Don't know. Manny says he was. Manny Machado worked out with him most of the winter in Miami. Was a big part of the Padres, being comfortable signing him, as was Yu Darvish signing off on it. But based on that, and that, not to get myself in trouble here, but this is what Yu Darvish talked about too. The baseball clubhouse is much different than the outside world. Okay. Me Too has, it permeated. Okay. They've joined the 2020s in the clubhouse, but there's a bunch of guys who hang out together all the time and don't get too butthurt about a lot of stuff that is said that can be pretty harsh. And as Yu Darvish pointed out, there's a lot of joking that goes on. There's a lot of different cultures that go on, and everybody isn't looking to cancel each other. Okay. And so there's just a lot of factors that I do believe that this is like a non-issue going forward.
His graciousness, both in real time and even now, I think I texted you about this yesterday. I'm blown away. I think he's
a real good human. I'm just going to assure people of that Yu Darvish is a real good human.
Yep. Where does Yuli Gurriel play? Is it DH against lefties? I mean, does he play the field?
Nah, I mean, he can probably barely play first base. He's no longer a third baseman. That's at least their impression going in. Sure. He gives them some at bats against lefties.
Okay, so a little bit like what Nelson Cruz was a few years ago.
Yes, he looks better than Nelson Cruz did. Now, that doesn't mean anything 2 days in, right? But he looks better than Nelson Cruz did. That said, his stats weren't as good as Nelson Cruz's like recently, but there was some promise in what he was able to do in AAA last year, and then for the Royals in September and in the postseason, a little bit of promise there. And like I said, like, this guy played in Cuba for a decade before coming to the United States. Like, he is revered inside this game by a lot of people, Latin players and people that know, like, and were familiar and watching what he did in Cuba. And then, led the league. Was it 2021, I think, led the American League, was a big part of what they were able to do there. The late teens is his first 4 years there in Houston. So, there's a history there, and it's not that long ago.
Right. Yeah. It's his baseball reference page starts in 2001.
Yeah.
Looked that up yesterday. That's insane. Kevin, I missed you. I'm so glad that we were able to talk and able to get caught up here. I don't know how frequently we're going to do this.
I missed you too. I'm sorry. I didn't want that to be like the I love you that, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
And then you go, yeah, I heard. Yeah. I don't know how often we're going to do this in spring training. Obviously, if there's breaking news, injury updates, signings, those sorts of things, trades, we will be certain to jump on here. I know that we will for certain talk at least once more before the season begins. And for now, go say hi to your new roommate, Bryce Miller. I get kind of an odd couple vibe from you guys.
Well,
you're fastidious. He's less so. Is that how it goes?
Maybe we'll go fishing while we're here. Like, what I call it is fishing because I catch fish. But Bryce, I'm not sure what he calls it. Probably calls it just hanging out with his buddy Kevin.
Love it. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Hot Lava Podcast. For Kevin Acee, I'm Ryan Finley. We'll see you next time.